Welcome to the 2018 induction into the Wall of Shame and the Wall of Fame. We will first be taking a look at Andrew Johnson and his shameful presidency and policies, and then look at Eleanor Roosevelt with her greatness and exceptionalism. To start off with Andrew Johnson, we have to first address his lack of character and drunkenness. In 1864, when he was being inaugurated for the vice president-elect under Abraham Lincoln, he was very ill at the time and decided to drink a lot of whiskey to help it out. Of course, that did anything but, and Senator Zachariah Chandler described the event perfectly in a letter home to his wife.
The inauguration went off very well, except that the vice president-elect was too drunk to perform his duties and disgraced himself and the Senate by making a drunken, foolish speech. I was never so mortified in my life. Had I been able to find a hole, I would have dropped right through it out of sight.
Under the Reconstruction policies of Andrew Johnson, he implemented the use of black codes in the South. These laws put on heavy restrictions on African Americans in the South and denying them their rights in the 15th Amendment. Johnson's penultimate act of shame was the violation of the Tenure Office Act. Now, the Tenure Office Act was to exclude the president from appointing or discharging cabinet members at will without the Senate's approval. Now, in 1868, Johnson intentionally defied Congress by firing Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton.
Andrew Johnson's Reconstruction policy also consisted of putting the white American elite back into the powers, including the government and any jobs that they can put their hands on. The violation of this act and the ultimate discharge of Edwin Stanton would later lead to his final shameful act, the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. 3 days after the discharge of Stanton, President Johnson was impeached. The House of Representatives voted him 126-47 in favor of impeaching the president for high crimes and misdemeanors. He would later be put off of charges and continue his presidency as normal.
Now let's take another look at Andrew Johnson's shamefulness from an outsider's perspective.
Being the president that followed a great president like Abraham Lincoln is very, very hard, especially when you decide to make changes to all the policies that Abraham Lincoln was trying to put or move forward with our country.
Now that you can clearly see why Andrew Johnson is in the Wall of Shame, let's go to Eleanor Roosevelt for the Wall of Fame.
The first act of community service that Eleanor Roosevelt did was when she worked for the Red Cross during World War I. Eleanor Roosevelt defied Birmingham's segregation laws when she sat directly beside an African American associate at the Southern Conference for Human Welfare. After being told this was not allowed, she measured the distance between the white section and the black section and sat directly in the center. Harry Truman appointed her to the United Nations General Assembly as a delegate. She worked with over 50 other representatives to compose the Declaration of Human Rights. She was later a chair of the United Nations Human Rights Commission, which she believed to be her greatest achievement. She had a newspaper column called My Day from 1935 to 1962. It discussed topics like her political views on prohibition in Pearl Harbor and her personal life. Eleanor Roosevelt changed the role of First Lady. She gave press conferences and on behalf of the League of Women spoke out for children's and human rights and women's issues.
Now let's take an outsider's perspective on Eleanor Roosevelt's greatness.
I think Eleanor Roosevelt has made many contributions to our society, especially bringing a new meaning to being the First Lady. Every First Lady since Eleanor Roosevelt has had a purpose, and that is contributed to Eleanor Roosevelt.
Thank you for joining us on this wonderful journey. I hope you now see why we inducted Andrew Johnson in the Wall of Shame and Eleanor Roosevelt in the Wall of Fame. His shameful acts and her community service showed the bad and the good of American history. Thank you.